I'm going to try to post this one more time. This is my story, our story. This is not the tale of my wife. This isn't a tale about my kids. My affair had little impact on their lives, believe it or not. They were more affected than anything else by the alcohol and drug misuse indicated below, in which I no longer participate. Nobody cares about their personal life. But since I'm sharing this publicly, I'll admit that I was a jerk at home until about a month ago. I took my children out for some weekend fun. Throughout this period, I took care of them and supplied for them. Throughout it all, I maintained a functional relationship with my wife, treated her with kindness, and we even had a kid that she so desired. My children were never neglected or disregarded. I provided them with whatever they need, and although I didn't always treat my wife with the respect she deserved, I always treated her with dignity. My wife has always been skeptical of my AP and is most likely in denial about the reality and the information I am about to relate, but she has consented to restart if I am prepared to do so. It was her idea. I am not some monster that jumps from woman to woman. If we can't fix what we have left, we have decided to split ways calmly and peacefully without affecting our children's lives. I would move permanently into the front of the house loft/garage apartment I remodeled, and we would continue to work as partners to raise the children and pay the bills until the 3 teenagers were moved out, at which point I would buy her out and help her find a place nearby, and we would co-parent our toddlers civilly. I am a monster, once again. This is a narrative about my affair partner, my honeybee. I composed this narrative about her and myself to help me remember and cherish what we shared. I did not come here to pass judgment or to be criticized. As mentioned in the rules of this subreddit, such comments are not permitted. I came here for help, to find someone to speak to about what I'm going through and maybe to find a way to forgive myself in the future. That being stated, here is our tale. We met in 2017, 37 males with bipolar 2. He/him married, 4 children, 37 females with major depressive disorder. She/her married, 1 kid. We both worked at an elementary school. She was a teacher, and I was the head chef, in charge of the daily breakfast and lunch service. To begin with, our relationship was absolutely innocent. She would stand at the front of the line while her children passed through. Most professors just let their students leave and went on their break. We would talk and swap tales, dumb jokes, and other such things. She once handed me a little post-it note with her phone number on it. Allow me to interrupt by adding that this lady was really stunning. Latina with a curvaceous physique and long, lovely hair with a subtle curl. And the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen. Light and bright bluish-green, massive doe eyes. Her penmanship was flawless. I accepted the letter, and she told me that if I ever wanted to talk, I could contact her and she would respond. So I saved her phone number on my phone, but I never texted her. I was too terrified. She didn't show up to work for many weeks. My colleague informed me that her grandma had died, so she took some time off. I'm not sure what came into me, but during my lunch break, I phoned her number and asked if she was all right. She appeared really pleased to hear from me, and we spoke for an hour on the phone about her grandma and how she was dealing with it. And as soon as I hung up, she texted me a thank you, and that was the end of it. Every day, we texted, back and forth, all very platonic, but continuous. Eventually, little remarks were passed back and forth, and texting gave way to Snapchat, which resulted in more flirty messages being traded between chats. This carried on for quite some time. "You know what we should do," she said one day, and in another rare display of bravado, I blurted out, over Snap, "We should get together." I still had no clue what she was about to say, but I had clearly gained her attention. She questioned the veracity of my assertion. I stated that since we got along so well, it was only natural for us to attempt to go on a date. Surprisingly, she agreed with me and proposed we'd meet for lunch the following day. I was over the moon with enthusiasm and had a hard time keeping it in check. It had been a long time since someone had shown any interest in me, and this girl was absolutely stunning. I was trembling. We had lunch together the following day and had a great time. She was playful and witty, looked me in the eyes when I talked, listened to me, and laughed at my stupid jokes. I was really taken aback by how well we were connecting. She was rom-com movie perfect. She was driving. When we got back to work, she parked and glanced over at me, so I leaned in for a hug and told her I had a wonderful night. She leaned in and grabbed me, and we were kissing before I realized what was going on. It wasn't a post-date kiss. It was the most intense and absurd kiss I'd ever had. Everything was so wonderful. Her hands were all over me, and she was so attentive of my body language. We were both out of breath from excitement as we came to a halt, and our eyes were locked. We were joined at the hip from that day forward, though we never called it that. She was my best buddy, if anybody asked. We accomplished so much together. Despite pretending not to be together, we attended to work happy hours and all business-related parties and activities. We went on wild dates and had the most beautiful, incredible, completely uncontrolled, nearly psychotic I've ever had in my life. I won't go into too much detail, but suffice it to say that this gal was down. For whatever reason. And we did whatever we pleased. It was the first meaningful chat we had about being in a relationship when she told me she had fallen in love. She was afraid that expressing me how she felt would drive me away from her since it hadn't been long, and there was still so much for us to learn about each other. I was completely smitten and didn't hesitate to reciprocate. I said that I, too, had fallen for her and saw something unique between us. I was intrigued by the prospect of a future with her, and that was the end of it. My girlfriend was my best buddy. It had become official. She was my girl, if anybody asked. With easy, months stretched into a couple of years. She had left the school, as had I, and we had both gone on to better careers, so we didn't see each other every day, thus we seldom argued and never fought. If we needed more room, it was right there for us. It was excellent for both of us, particularly because she was pursuing her academic degree. That was incredible. The talk was always engaging, and the closeness was unparalleled. I've had long-term partnerships, but they were always tinged with conflict, and I was always lonely. Not with her. She was flawless. She was the ultimate love of my life. No one had ever shown me such warmth and concern before. I was pampered beyond my merit, and I was going to learn that lesson in the most difficult manner conceivable. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict, you see. I'd fought with using my whole life, and adulthood is no exception. My drinking grew more problematic over time, and since I was accustomed to being treated so nicely, I began to take advantage. I stood her up since she had passed out many times. At times, I disregarded her. I would call her blackout drunk and chat to her passionately, then forget about it, cheapening the sweet nothings. I was a terrible boyfriend. By the 4th year, things had begun to deteriorate. I was in a car accident on the job and was thrown from the vehicle, breaking my collarbone, 4 ribs, and my scapula. No head injury. This resulted in 6 months of compensated unemployment. My drinking worsened over this period. We saw one other less and less, and our conversations were distant and insignificant. The personal tales and sweet nothings had turned into anecdotes and professional stories. Nonetheless, we spoke by SMS for the most of the day, every day. I made up a meeting date and told her how vital it was for us to get together, since it had been a long time. She accepted, and we decided to meet the following morning at 10:00 a.m. I was fluttering with excitement, exactly as I had done years before. Around 10:45 a.m., I awoke from my normal night of drinking with the usual headache. My heart plummeted into my belly as I reached for my phone to check the time. 3 missed calls and 15 new text messages. She was really enraged and heartbroken. I asked pardon and apologized. She apologized and gently said that she wanted some space. I was very upset. That was 10 months ago, and it would be another 10 months before I saw her again, but within a few weeks, we were chatting every day again. This time was unique. I'd admit my sorrow and remorse, and I'd quit drinking 7 months ago. But she'd had enough of my nonsense. She'd gotten a position with a well-known educational television station and was completely focused on herself. We still texted every day and chatted on the phone sometimes. And yes, I stopped drinking 7 months ago, but please hold your applause. See, around a year ago, I got into some mess with a buddy and began taking stimulants again, although just infrequently at first. I never mentioned anything to her. I persuaded her to visit me about a month ago, and we met in an arcade near my home. We met outdoors. I hadn't seen her in over a year. I probably harmed her by wrapping my arms around her so tightly. And we both sobbed and cried, and she kissed me the way I had always loved her. It was an intense and sensitive moment. We sat in her vehicle, simply talking, and I rested my head on her chest. That night, she made a move at me and informed me that making out always leads to more. I stopped her as her hands began to stray. I wasn't prepared. It was becoming late, so I headed home, but not before we planned to meet at Target the following day. We met, went shopping, and sat in her vehicle again, chatting and kissing, and I began talking about the future. She and I kissed one final time before she had to go for work. The drug usage I stated led to my receiving a prescription for Adderall from my doctor and taking it more often. I went back to the street on March 28 for something stronger and became really high. I'd been awake for a few days when I called her and confessed my everlasting love and infatuation, that I was ready to leave my home and be with her in the manner we had frequently discussed, that we could be together again, that I was no longer drinking, and that we could make it work. I apologized for every single fault, letting her know I wasn't unaware of how I had harmed her. I did all I could to make her realize how much I loved and fetishized her, that I had created an altar in my room with mementos of her, that I would do everything to spend the rest of my life with her. That's when she said we had a chat. She had rekindled her affection for her spouse. He had begun to treat her better at home, giving her the attention she had always thought she deserved, and she believed he deserved another opportunity to be her partner. She was allowing him to fire his final shot, as she phrased it, and I was heartbroken. I was as high as a kite. As a result, my grief swiftly transformed to rage and insanity. I blasted a torrent of furious, cruel, rude, and terrible words. I told her I despised her. No, you don't, and I don't either. Then she blocked me on all platforms. She even unsubscribed from my Spotify family plan. I know it seems ridiculous, but exchanging music was an important aspect of our relationship. This saddened me a lot since it meant she wouldn't be sharing music with me or listening to the ones I shared in the future. After I had slept off my rage, I contacted her again through email and told her the whole truth about my drug usage and why I had done what I did. I urged her to speak with me. I pleaded with her to let me see her again. And she did unblock and communicate with me. And she knows why I did what I did. She accepts my apology. She also told me how profoundly and wildly she loves me. And she told me how valuable what we had was to her, a little treasure. And she understood that the love we had would never be duplicated. But she is unable to be with me. So we tried communicating for a month, and it simply wasn't working. I would not cease pleading, and she refused to stop saying no. We were both dissatisfied, and we can't keep pretending that being friends will suffice. And she told me she had to let me go. We agreed on it today because what other option do I have? One final farewell. I gave her the link to the Spotify playlist I've been working on for years. 4 hours of tracks, all flawlessly picked from various genres, all of which remind me of her. She promised to listen to everyone and give me a bundle of mementos to remember her by. "See you later, Space Cowboy," was the last thing I spoke to her, and she barred me once again for her sake and mine. I'm not sure when or if I'll ever speak to or see her again. All I know is that she's gone today, right now. It's been 5 years, and in return for getting screwed up, I flushed it down the toilet. I allowed my addictions to dominate my behavior, and I lost the one person on the planet who tolerated them. I had to say goodbye to the most significant person in my life, and I regret it so badly that my heart is breaking. I squandered a half-decade of her life attempting to ruin mine, and I wasted my time with the one person who has ever shown me genuine, honest affection. I've been sobbing since March 31st, and it's not going to end anytime soon. My work is in jeopardy and my family is at a loss as to how to assist me. Nobody can. Though I have a firm hold on my remorse, I will recover in time. I no longer use it, and I still don't drink. I've begun to prioritize my family and have promised to repair my relationship with my wife, who has been patiently waiting for me to get clean and quit visiting my AP. She is a lovely lady who deserves only the best. I may not be able to provide it for her, but I will try. Who am I to reject her again if she can accept everything I've done and yet go on with me? Since I published this story, our connection, my app, Honeybee, has given many confused signals. She reached me online and proposed we meet in person one final time to say goodbye and honor and appreciate what we had together before she left my life. Shortly after we agreed on a meeting date, she said that she would want to remain in touch as long as I respected some limits she established. I'm completely perplexed. And I suppose she is, but she isn't thinking about my limits. She isn't thinking about how the continual back and forth between zero contact, complete contact, and occasional contact is hurting my heart and making it difficult for me to determine what to do with the rest of my life. I have, of course, adhered to all of her requirements so far, but I'm not sure how many more times I can say goodbye to her before I decide to completely break all communication. It tears me open every time she gives anything and then takes it away. I'll never be able to heal at that pace. It is unjust to anybody engaged. Any suggestions would be much appreciated. Criticism, negative remarks, and other unpleasantries will be reported and removed. Please do not attempt to kick me when I am down. I would never do such a thing to you.